It's been 4 years since we last featured an Audi R8 V10 on RPM, and that occasion was particularly memorable because, of course, the car was spectacular. We drove to Dahlstrom, we spent an entire day thrashing it up and down the mountain pass at Steenkampsberg, and we came away very impressed with the car. 4 years later, we have another R8 V10. There have been some changes, some facelifts, some cosmetic updates, and a brand new model. It's called the Audi R8 V10 Plus, and as the name implies, it should be even better than the original. The R8 has already established itself as a modern classic, a thoroughbred supercar that might share some of its underpinnings with a Lamborghini Gallardo, but remains indisputably an Audi. The Plus is not a low-volume special, but the new flagship of the R8 range, and in performance terms, it promises to set new standards. The Audi R8 is one of those head-turning cars that's difficult to ignore, and it still looks as fresh, as modern and as striking as it did back in 2006. Of course, it was originally conceived as a competitor to the Porsche 911, but because it sells in much smaller numbers, it's got an air of exclusivity. You don't see that many R8s on our roads. You need to be a bit of an R8 fundi to notice the differences between this latest version and the original, and in fact, all the differences are in the details. A new grille with gloss black inserts and chrome detailing, full LED headlights and a carbon fibre reinforced front splitter are specific to the Plus, as is the rear diffuser and the exhaust tailpipes finished in black. The so-called blades on each flank are carbon fibre, while the lightweight 19-inch wheels shod with fat and grippy performance rubber are new too. But that squat, menacing shape remains instantly recognisable. Absolutely pivotal to the appeal of the Audi R8 V10 is the engine. It's hand-built, it's shared with the Lamborghini Gallardo, and in the case of the Plus, it makes even more power than before. We're talking 404 kilowatt, which is 18 kilowatt more than the original, while the torque peak has gone up to 540 newton meters. Best of all, it sounds glorious. Another key improvement is the move from the clunky R-tronic robotized manual to the slick and quick-shifting S-tronic 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. You can drive it in full auto mode, but really sequential manual operation using the shift paddles behind the steering wheel is by far the better option. The V10 Plus might be the hardcore member of the R8 family, but the cabin is very much a luxurious place. The most important distinguishing feature between this car and the normal ones are these high-backed, lightweight bucket seats, and there's quite a bit of carbon inlay work as well. But I have to say the general impression is rather old school because a lot of the internals here have been taken from the older generation A3. For the rest, though, it's a fairly decent place to spend time in. That central display is very much old school, as is much of the switchgear, although execution remains first class. If anything, the R8 showcases just how far Audi's interiors have progressed since the mid-2000s. Of particular note in the R8 Plus context is the Sport button on the center console. It opens up the exhaust, adds extra urgency to the throttle mapping, and allows sharp percussive blips on downshifts. It also switches the adaptive dampers to a sportier, tauter setting. The R8 V10 Plus is a supercar, and it has the performance to match. 0 to 100 time, a scintillating 3.5 seconds, top speed 317 kilometers an hour. But there's more to this car than top speed. It's actually the handling that matters here. The R8 V10 Plus revels in being driven with gusto. The handling is more rear-wheel drive than all-wheel drive, thanks to a quattro system that's firmly rear-biased, never allowing more than 30% of the urge to be sent to the front wheels. While all that grip allows loads of speed to be carried into corners, it's the way the car slingshots out of the tight that reminds you how well the chassis copes with all that muscle on offer. One could argue that the R8 V10 Plus has dual personalities. In normal mode, it's actually quite benign unless you're really hammering the throttle, and the ride quality is pretty good too. In fact, you could drive this as an everyday car, but hit the sport button and the entire car changes its personality, and it suddenly becomes the hardcore sports car that you expect. The steering feels precise with enough heft to allow incisive piloting. But while the gearbox is mostly a treat, it's almost too smooth, too refined for such a muscle-bound performance machine. It's a great cruiser too, eating long distances for breakfast while cosseting its occupants in real comfort. Indeed, there's much more to the V10 Plus than a pretty shape. The Audi R8 is already a sports car classic, even though the four-rings might not quite have the same cachet as a Porsche, a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. The classic status, of course, also goes for this latest Plus version, and it adds an extra edge of performance. If we're talking price, at just under 2.4 million rands, believe it or not, this car actually reflects fairly good value in supercar terms. But most of all, it offers a quite brilliant and engaging driving experience. With more power and torque, it stands to reason that the V10 Plus is the fastest R8 yet, while the new tronic gearbox is a vast improvement too. The result is a supercar all-rounder that's mostly user-friendly but hardcore exciting at the limit. However, the interior is in need of an update.